Hello. So last night I got out my StyleCraft Special DK yarn, and I thought I would try the popcorn, and they worked really nicely. So I have about 24 different colors. I also made squares, testing out the different yarns to see which ones were slightly thicker and which ones were thinner. And these two were the thin colors, so I'm using them for the centers. And this one is particularly slippery, which is annoying, but for the flower it's actually working quite well. So I've started making a couple of them, and I thought, well, before I go any further, I would make some with a video. So let me put these away. This is a 4mm hook. I've chosen the two colors. This is the center color, which is quite thin, and this is a slightly thicker, and it's a bit more rough. It doesn't slip so much. So that's going to be the outer color. Let's get that ready. I've written the pattern down. Now I have a weird way of writing patterns, but I'm going to put on the screen anyway. So color 1 is a magic circle, and there are the slip knot plus a chain 1 equals 1/2 double crochet. It's US terms. And then I'll make 7 half double crochets, and I'll slip knot to the chain 1. And let me just write in here. So equal total 8. Okay. Actually, so it's not actually really clear. It's actually 8 V's. You'll see later on when I'm counting. It's not actually 8 stitches, 8 V's. Then keeping the same color, I'm going to chain 2. And it does not count as a stitch. I'll make 5 double crochets in the first stitch into the V. And then this over here is the pattern. Turn work in 5th V from hook, make a slip stitch to create a petal and chain 2. That's why it's good to actually read through a pattern first. Repeat pattern for the petal, and we need a total of 8 petals. 8 petals. After the last chain 2, we're going to slip stitch into the back of the first petal to close flower, and then cut yarn. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to go into color 2, which I will show when I come to color 2. I'm going to do my best to put this all in one video, so it won't be in several pieces. Flower from the start to the end. I might have to stop, but I'll glue them together afterwards so it becomes one video. Now, last time I couldn't zoom in. There we go. Fantastic. Starting off with a magic circle. Fetching the yarn. Slip knot, slip stitch, whatever you like to call it. I just call it a little slip knot. And then chain 1. I'm then going to make 7 half double crochets. One. So fetch the yarn around the hook, go through the loop with the magic circle, bring the yarn back. Now I have 3 on my hook, pull the yarn through all 3. It's a half double crochet. This yarn is particularly slippery, which is very annoying. So I'm just going to continue until I have 7 V's. If I counted, I'd also be making 7 half double crochets. Let me see how many V's. I think I've got too many here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have too many, so I'll take one off. You can see this yarn is very annoying. So I have 7 V's, even though the one is coming down the bottom. Still there. 2, 4, 6, 7. Then I unravel this little tail and I give it a tug, so I close that magic circle. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working into the 7th V, this one over here. Count back from the hook. 2, 4, 6, 7. If I struggle to get my hook in with things as they are, even this color, this is quite a big one, but for demonstrations I'll show. I just take a smaller hook, but not so small, that's ridiculous. Smaller hook, go and fetch the yarn. Okay, it looks fiddly, it is a bit fiddly, but I make a lot of them in one go and then my hands just get used to it. Okay, and it's actually a slip stitch. Now be careful not to pull all of this, because you don't want to close this one over here up. You don't want to make him tight, because when you come back you have to make 5 double crochets in there, so the last thing you want is for him to be too tight and too small. If you count the V's, there will be 8 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8. And I do suggest when you start making them that you do actually count, because otherwise when you start making your petals and you find that you're missing one, you will have 7 petals, or if you have one too many you'll have 9 petals, and then you have to start again. But once you've done quite a few, then your eye will start to tell you. Now we're chaining 2 up. That does not count as a stitch. And into this V here at the base, we're going to make 5 double crochets, US terms. Wrap the yarn, go into the V, pull the yarn out. We now have 3 on the hook, go through 2 and go through 2. You now have 1 half double crochet. You're going to make 5 of those to the same space. So not counting the chain, 2, 4, 5. I'm going to turn the work and I'm going to be working into this 5th V here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I turn the work, it's less obvious where it is. So just to give myself my bearing, it's quite far down. Turn the work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a slow one here. Quite low. I'm going to slip it onto my hook. Yeah. This yarn is so unforgiving, but I'm going to persevere. This is a slip stitch. So what I'm done, if I continue now, it'll be a single crochet. I want it to be a slip stitch, which means I'm going to go all the way through. I'm closing it with a slip stitch because I'm not making another row of popcorns. If I was, I would have made a single crochet. but these ones are not going to be 2 rows of popcorns. If you watch my other videos, then you will see that. So it's not necessary to make a single crochet, and that makes it a nice tight finish, tight close. Now I'm coming to the next V. I'm making 5 double crochets, some more yarn out my ball, and I'll be repeating the process. This time it will be easier because I'm not working to the top of the chains. I'm literally working to the top of a half double, the top of a double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn the work. You can see the little space here. It's literally that stitch at the top there. See where the chain is? It is not the stitch between these 2 posts. It is literally the stitch hanging over the edge of the cliff, so to speak. That is the 5th V from the hook. 1, sorry, off the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this anatomy is important. Once you actually see how the stitches are created, it falls into place and you don't have to think about it. Your eyes will automatically find it. So I'm being quite laborious now. Going into that 5th one, fetching the yarn and pulling it all the way through. Give it a little tug, make it nice and tight. Chain 2. Working into the next V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turning the work. Going into the V that's literally hanging off the edge of the cliff. Slip stitching. Chaining 2. Turning back. Now it seems like this will take forever, but once you get the rhythm going, and as I said, if you do a couple at the same time, so say you have a project and you want to have 20 squares, after the first 3, 4, you won't even be thinking anymore. So you can watch TV, follow a conversation, whatever your favorite thing to do is when you're crocheting. Listen to music. Make a basket full of them. You can make them different colors, obviously. So I said I've decided to use, of all the StyleCraft yarns that I have here, I have decided to use the thinnest and most annoying for the flowers. I always count. I know there's one more, but I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sometimes it's not obvious, especially if you've pulled this little one here tight when you started. He will be very well hidden. If he is too tight because you pulled him too tight, use a smaller hook. It's really painful, but you're going to have to fetch the yarn each time for that double crochet with that. So in this case, no, he's nice and big. I do keep extra bit of tension on my yarn because I want the petal to really fit into the crevices. What's that? He's going to do, what is that? Sometimes there's a bit of fluff. Don't like that. Take it away. Five. So this will be my last petal out of 8. Chain 2, like with the rest, because I'll be working into those chains for the next row, so it needs to be there. To close off, what I'm going to do is, there is a hole created by the closing of the petal, and it's into that I'm going to go. Give the yarn a bit of a tug to close that loop, and I'm going to slip stitch. Give it another tug. I want everything to be closed, neat, tight. Fetch the yarn again. I'm going to cut a long tail because I'm going to work that tail away very well. When the yarn is this slippery, there's absolutely no way I want that to come loose later on. For now, I will not work that away. I do it after I'm finished the square. Because as you can see, he's like a little closed sea urchin. Once the square has been worked, he opens up. And then it's much easier to work away the tails. So let's go ahead with the second color. And before we do that, I'm going to bring back my book. And we can see where we're going. And I'm sure that now you have made some sense of how we did that little flower. And page 2. So color 2. There'll be 2 rows, row 1 and row 2. Slip knot yarn onto hook. Into any space, start pattern for row 1 of square. So the pattern for row 1 and row 2 are slightly different. The pattern is 3 half double crochets equal the sides, and in the corners it's 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. Those equal the corners, and that creates the pattern. See this green one down here? Those are my 3 double crochet, half double crochets, sides, and the corners have, well, they have that, which is my standard pattern for my compact squares. These are compact squares, which means there are no chains on the sides between clusters, for want of a better word. And in my compact squares, the only place there's a chain is on the corner, and there's one. Those little ones there are half double crochets. You continue all the way around, you repeat it. The slip knot and chain 1 will equal 1 half double crochet, so that equals a stitch. You're making 2 more half double crochets, and that equals the first side. And then you repeat the pattern until the end. join the end with a slip stitch to the chain 1. Here's the chain 1, which is right at the beginning. Row 2, we're keeping the same color. So because you're keeping the same color, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2 into the first double crochet. Chain 2 equals the first double crochet, and then we'll make 2 more double crochets, and that'll equal the first cluster. Now I am not turning. I love to turn my squares, and these ones I'm not. So I'm going to take a red pen. I'm going to put here, do not turn work. Row color 2 on right side. Okay, and over here, not reversible. If you've been following my videos, you will see that a lot of my squares are reversible. The pattern: 3 double crochets in two spaces on the side. Let's get another one here. Space 1, space 2. And in the corners, we have 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. There's the pattern. Continue until the end. Join by cutting the yarn and making an invisible V into the top of the chain 2. Work away tails. I did weigh them because I do like to know how many I can get out of the wool that I have, the yarn that I have. The flower, this particular flower, in the thin SSDK is 1.3 grams. Some of them are 1.2, but I'm putting 1.3. The total square, because the outside yarns do differ, with between 3.2 grams and 3.5 grams. Which means that the yarn for the square is between 1.9 and 2.2 grams. As I said, it's handy to know, because if you're going to be making a project and you have some yarn, you don't know how many squares you're going to be getting out of them. A 4mm. We are starting off with a slip knot. So let me zoom in. Yarn to the back. Hold it. How do I do it? There we go. Whoops. Yarn to the back. Hold it. Go underneath the 2. Fetch the yarn. Bring it back. Pull the tail out. Put the hook back in. Oh la la. That's the thing when I think someone's watching me. Everything goes wrong. Okay, let me just do it without thinking. Ah, yes. Don't pull the tail through. Keep the tail on the hook. Silly me. Let me do that again so you can see. Go around the finger, hold the yarn in the back, fetch the yarn, keep that loop on the hook, pull it closed, and now drop the tail. Tighten it. So that's my slip knot. I'm going to work on the opposite end of this tail. Into any space. Here's the chain 2 space. Go in, single crochet, close that, give it a bit of tug. That's why I did my slip knot that way. Give it another tug, chain 1. That is my first half double crochet. Wrap the yarn, go in, fetch it. I have 3 on the hook, pull yarn through all 3, first half double crochet, wrap the yarn, go through the space, fetch the yarn, bring it back. I've got 3 on the hook, wrap the yarn, pull through all 3. That's another half double crochet. Counting the first slip knot in chain 1 plus the 2 half double crochets, I now have 3 stitches. And when I come back, I'll be working into that there. That is, where's my chain 1? Sorry, that's not my chain 1. There it is, the top. It was on the chain 1 is there, and this guy was actually literally on the hook at the time of the chain 1. Here's the top. There we go. Now we're going to be working into the corner, which is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So you wrap the yarn, go into the space, fetch the yarn, pull through 2, pull through 2, wrap the yarn, go through, fetch the yarn, pull through 2, pull through 2, chain 1. A little bit gaping. So I'm going to see, that's the thing, when I demonstrate, my tension changes. Chain 1, keep the tension, and 3 more. I know I do assume that you know how to crochet. If you are a beginner, I'm very sorry about that. It's definitely an intermediary pattern. Now we come to this space here, which is a side. Make 3 half double crochets, 2 and 3. Coming to the corner. Well, you can't see it's a corner yet because it's still a flower, it's round, but that is the corner. 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So you'll be keeping up with that pattern until you come back to the end. Every now and then I check what my count is in case I've been sidetracked, in case I'm talking. 1, 2. That's where the little knot is. Working him away later, moving the tail out the way. Corner again. Side. And my final corner. So it's 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. Be particularly careful that I do not work into the space created on the side of the flower. Can happen, so do check. If it happens, you need to undo your work because it will distort your little flower. Okay, so I've come to the end. See, that's pretty in itself. And I'm now going to slip stitch. Remember earlier on I showed where I was going to slip stitch to? After I had slip knot chain 1 equals the first stitch. But when you chain 1, there's a loop on the hook. and that is this guy here. And it's into that I'll be making a slip stitch. Now, what I didn't actually mention, which I should have done because I just did automatically, I'm going to show you what I do. Some people will just chain 2. That can be equal to a stitch. I'll show you what I do. It's a little quirk. I go into here. It's like a little, makes like a base. I chain 1. So let me put it into there. How do I do it? I'm going to put here chain 2. Or it's a single crochet into space and then chain 1, and that equals 1 double crochet. A lot of people don't do that. You will see that most people just chain 2 up. Just creates a firmer base there. And because I turn a lot of my work, I make that so when I turn my work, I have my first double crochet literally created into the space. But in this case, I'm not. What I'm going to be doing is putting my 2 half double crochets into that space. There we go. That creates my first cluster. To the next one, we're making 2 double crochets. There's so many ways to tweak a pattern. You really need to find out what you like, how you like to step up. Everyone steps up differently. I just like the thickness that's created by that. And what I do sometimes, I only make 1 half double crochet here. When I come back, I'll squeeze the other half double crochet into there if I'm ending a row, or if I want to make it really invisible. It really depends on how I feel. I tend to pick up a rhythm, either the yarn or just how I feel that day, and I'll make a whole lot the same way. But if I come back to it in a few weeks' time, I might choose one of my other techniques. So I'm going around and making the compact granny square. As you can see, I'm not chaining anywhere else but in the corners. And when I actually work that group, that cluster, I'm trying to get my little, I give it a little tug each time, just to really get the yarn tucked in there. I don't know why I've been making these particular little squares tight. Sometimes I make granny squares and my tension is loose. But I've been making quite a few of these. Not just this yarn. I've been also using other DK, some of them much thicker. Oops, and I've noticed that my squares have become quite tight and compact. Well, I mean, obviously it's a compact square, but I mean it also is, my tension has become quite tight. So what I did there was I pulled it by accident, so I'm just going to straighten that guy out. Give him a nice finish. Sometimes it just needs a little flick of the finger to move the yarn into place. So see, if you're not careful, you'll be actually working into the V. You've got to go right into the space, which is a lower down, because there's this little guy here, and he can be missed. So I go down into there, flick the yarn, it's nice and tight, pull it up. Just move the finger slightly just to position it. These are the 3. Try and start the first group literally still on the edge there, you see there. So I can get all 6 stitches into this space. Get the chain 1, turn it. Now this one I'm going to pull down like there, slicing into that space. So even if I pick up speed, my fingers do this little twitchy thing just to get, see the twitches there, it pulls the yarn right across before I actually hook it. So I'm literally putting the yarn into place before the hooks even come near it. See there? No, I don't like that one. There we go. It's a final one. 37 minutes. But we have looked in my book as well. Give you an idea of how long it will take to crochet one of these. And it's definitely not 37 minutes. It's much faster than that. I haven't really timed one from start to finish in this particular yarn. I do that often. I love to time myself, like the same way I like to weigh my little squares. Because I'm a lady of leisure, having the luxury of being at home and being able to do this. This poor little square's been a demonstration square, and he's been tugged in all directions. So I've come to the end now. As I said, if I had done my step up and then my first one, I would have tucked the last one into there, which means my step up would have been in the middle and completely invisible. In this case I didn't. I did all 3 together. So it is falling over. If I had done this one here, he would be perfect like that. I'm going to cut the yarn, give myself a nice long tail, pull it out. So the next step is going to be working the tails away. Get my magnet. I'm looking for sharp, large needle. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Start with the greens. Same thing, I usually do a pile and then I do it all together. But in this case, doing start to finish in one go. So that yarn is, this is strange yarn. I've noticed that the plies separate very easily. Don't know what it's like to knit with. I've only ever used it for crochet. The first time I bought it was a couple of months ago. So I use the back of the needle. It's not so easy to see. Let me see if I can find a white background. Doesn't glare too much. So I'm using the back of the needle and I'm going to be working into that top V there. pulling it through. Won't be the same size as the rest, and I'll be going down into that one, the back of the needle, flip it over, going through the 2 loops. You can see there's a two parts to the stitch. Look at the back. So we've recreated that part of the stitch. Now we just need to recreate the bottom part. Get a smaller hook. It's the bottom part of the stitch. See there? Going to recreate. Whoops! We're going to recreate that. So my V is the right size, because I'll be using him later when I sew up my squares together. So I'm going to hold him with my nail, and then I'm going to come into the base here, go across the other side, catch the base there, and go to the next stitch, catch the base. You can even go to the 3rd one if you want. Pinch well here, because you do not want to deform your V on top. What you literally want to do is just recreate the bottom. Don't have to be zealous about it, just enough so that it'll blend in. Now I'm working the tail away. So that was basically to recreate the stitch. Now I'm going to work the tail away. Undoing the plies and following the shape and direction of the stitches, the way they lie. I've worked away across there. I'm always heading for the worms, so that's where I'm going. There we go, to the corner worm. My finger at the back is guide, making sure it doesn't poke through. It's still got quite a bit of tail, so I will just continue. I will simply continue until that tail is gone. Come down to the half of this 6 worm section, and I'll go back up to another worm and go across. This green yarn is what I call rough. It has a grip to it. I think once it gets washed, those fibers are really going to, look what that happened there. Those fibers are really going to disappear. Cut this one off. Pull those two through. Now I'm going to work this one. I'll go in the opposite direction. We started off with a slip knot, so that knot is going to do its job. Let's give it a little tug, nice and tight. I'm going to go through this worm into the center of the worm. Finger at the back is making sure it doesn't poke through. Hold it nice and tight, because you don't want it to deform. There's my little knot. Go up. If it's slippery yarn, I actually go back and I work that knot away. In this case, it's not at all necessary. When I mean work it away, it means I'll actually go through it with the needle and the thread, almost like I make a double knot. Now I'm going to go up to the top. You can go whichever direction you want. Running out of tail. So you see why it's nice to cut a nice long tail? I use my fingers as a guide when I'm cutting the tail. Was, you know, when I cut, if you could see where I was cutting. Gives me a nice long thread to work with. Now we're going to come to the purple one. I can take this book away because the needle will be in the middle of the work. Doesn't really matter which one you start with, but if you do work this one down and you start working in the center, make sure that you have actually first closed your magic circle, because sometimes the magic circle can be a bit open. Let me see if any of these are. No, they're all closed. Sometimes the magic circle's a bit open and then you need to close them first. But I'll start with the magic circle anyway. Nice long tail, lovely. Unwind my plies, making sure I know which direction the yarn came from. Because if you go backwards from where you came, you will literally undo your flower. That's the problem with magic circles, they're tricky. I am now going to continue. Wow, silly me, look at that. Such a long tail and I've got it right on the end. I'm going to work in the direction of the clock. First go down here. It's in the center. My finger in the back is literally in the hole. He will feel if I poke through. Because I made lots of these, I actually I've got the habit now and it doesn't go through. But it's a good guide to use your finger. So I've come all the way around. You can pretty much tell because that's where your tail is. So you can tell because your tail is there. So now you've worked all the way around. Once that's done, I'll leave the center, going up one of the side stems. Once again, looking at the construction of your work. That'll be your guide, and going into the worm. You can literally go round and round and round. If you want to, you can go into these worms over here as well, but with these flowers, I actually quite like going round and round and round, because I think what it's doing, because this needle is sharp, it's cutting into all those petal bases, the bases of all the petals, and anchoring those stitches, those double crochets. Because remember, this is going, if it's a blanket or a pillow or whatever it's going to be, bag, it's probably going to get quite a bit of friction and movement, and the more things stay in place, the better. So I've basically been working around this here and anchoring them into place. Now this one, you can cut that one if you want. I'm going to leave him just as a little guide so I know where he is. So this is where the knot was. And he's a slippery chap. So what I'm actually going to do is, that's the knot there. I'm going to go just underneath. As if I was darning a sock or something. I'm going to go back and back. Here's the knot there. Really emphasize that knot is now a knot. And then I go down. And I go round and round. As you can see, I'm going in the opposite direction, the last one. Trying to keep to the base of these double crochet petals. I'm working the same color into the same color. So should there be any way that it peeks through, but it's not. You see, there's a space there. I don't want to have my yarn coming across that space. Because from this side you think, oh, it looks really solid, but they are actually, let me find something I can stick in there. There are actually big spaces where the petals are free from each other. Okay, I think that's good enough. Cutting, making sure I just leave a little bit, give it a little tug, it's almost gone. This is not a reversible square, not as imperative. If it was reversible, I would not leave that, but you'll see it'll work away very quickly. There's your little, there he is. So 51, 59, 52 minutes. Thank you very much, and I hope that you will have as much fun as I'm having. And I would definitely say the best part is all the different colors. So if you buy yourself a selection of yarns, you have a lot of fun. Here we go. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.